Well, hi everybody, I'm Andy Johnson. Good to see you. Hope you're staying safe and healthy as we continue this journey here in Trinidad and Tobago. This is going to be what is happening today on the program, this edition of the program. This is AM Prime here at WESN and WESN-CC. We're talking this edition of the program first with Mr. James Lambert. He's the President General of the Union representing, in the main, daily paid workers in the government service. The question is the government's decision to go to Parliament and take steps necessary to increase the age of retirement from 60 to 65. There's been a lot of discussions about that. In some cases, trade union leaders were saying that, well, what is being done here is people are being cheated. That when the proposition was first put on the table for discussion a couple of years ago, that workers were being cheated of their retirement time. It has come to the point where now some workers and their representatives are saying that is what is required to take people a little further down the road in terms of providing for their safety and security after that. But it has become about essentially because of ways being sought to fix the retirement schemes we have, the national insurance scheme in particular. They're saying that if it continues at this rate, where workers, particularly in the state sector, are retiring at 60, particularly public servants, that the fund will not be sufficient to be sustained over a long period of time. So that is one of the reasons behind it. A minister in the Ministry of Finance, Brian Manning, went around meeting trade union leaders to discuss it, and so apparently there's been some agreement, although some leaders are wondering at the real reason behind the decision. They're going to go to Parliament to change the regulations to fix it, whether or not it's fanciful and what lies behind it. So we'll be talking, in fact, on two segments of the program in this edition with that, both with Mr. Lambert and with Mr. Clyde the Elder. He's representing, he's the head of the union, represents workers as TSTT, and he's agreed to participate in that discussion from his perspective as well. And then we come back to a discussion with Ronald Boynes, who is one of the people contesting the position of political leader of the People's National Movement. In the Sunday Express, he was speaking in an interview in which he said if that didn't happen, if there wasn't change, or there won't change at the top of this party, it would implode. He says there's a great disconnect between the leadership and the general rank and file in the party. We want to get more from him on that. Of course, we go around the region, we make some stops with what is happening, the latest from a number of countries as we go across the region on this edition of the program. So those things and more here on AM Prime. This edition, stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
All the bakes and Bungie, remember them days? Well, all right, Bungie might remember, but Ian Alvarez remember them. Don't forget the rest of the room, Ian. Forget the rest. Me and you talking alone here. Ian, remember the days When you went to the fridge with the hot bake in your hand to get blue band butter, but the blue band butter done. And you went for the yellow, the golden ray. They're shaking their head. No, listen, you don't know what it is when you bite a bake with golden ray, my dear. Once that big hot with golden ray,
Saturday, November 5th, Shore Park, Tobago. It's Million Laughs Caribbean Comedy Commerce, the mega laugh festival to end the Tobago Carnival season, featuring Tobago's finest in folklore and musical entertainment, together with some of the Caribbean's top comedians: Larry Joseph, Daryl the Saint Mendoza, Dolores, Alan the Entertainer, Handsome Sun, Mako Media, and more. Get your ticket specials available on Island E-Tickets and various outlets nationwide, or visit the Million Laughs handles for more info. It's Comedy Commerce in Tobago, a wee kind of commerce.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the right and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to the program. Let's work out some kinks we have in the lineup this morning. But before we do that, we take a look around the region. We begin a look around the region. We go to Jamaica in this edition, where we're seeing that a senior superintendent, in a moment of reflection in the police service in Jamaica, they call it the constabulary, he spoke on the killing of a constable who was shot by gunmen in a place called Frog City off Maxwell Park Road on Saturday. We have a report as carried from the Jamaica Gleaner newspaper.
He was from a very humble background. Seeing his relatives last night, to include his mother and father, you realize that type of person they were. He was to them all there is.
Constable Brian Martin of the Halfway Tree Police Station, a young constable. Last night he was attending a wake in this vicinity here, along with other family members and friends, at about 9:45 p.m. when gunmen opened fire on the gathering and 5 persons were shot. Unfortunately, Constable Martin received a gunshot wound to the head and was taken to hospital where he died. The other 4 members were admitted, some in stable condition, and 1 member was considered fairly serious. On behalf of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, we would like to extend condolences to his family and his colleagues at the Halfway Tree Police Station and the members who graduated with him. We are here visiting his mom and other family members, and as you can understand, they are distraught. We are making arrangements with our medical services unit and our counseling unit to provide them with necessary support.
22 of them came here together. He is described by them as a very humble youth, someone who readily shares and cares, and someone who, from the other end, where we are concerned, evaluating him, has worked very, very well. He's committed to his job. The little space of time we saw, he was on a specialty doing traffic management, and his level of output was very, very high. We expected a lot from this constable, and he too, based on his own development process, set as young as he was and set goals for himself that he would expect to achieve over short periods of time. So he had short-term goals that he expressed to his supervisors and was working toward them, and he also had long-term goals. He was from a very humble background. Seeing his relatives last night, to include his mother and father, you realize that type of person they were. He was to them all there is. His mother had a lot of expectations for him and of him, and she is at a loss. I'm told presently that she's admitted in the hospital. From last night, I saw that we couldn't get to console her because she was just not appreciative of anybody around her and was just trying to come to grips with the situation. I don't think she has done that yet. The loss is just too much for her, and maybe even more so the way it occurred. It's a very sad thing. It's a very sad day for his family immediate and the JCF family. The JCF not only is in mourning, but we are trying our best to do an outreach with his family to help as best as we can for us as we grieve together to lend that level of support and comfort. So.
All right, so perhaps we could remind you that on this date, 39 years ago, October 19th, that was the day of infamy in the neighboring country of Grenada. That was the day on which the Prime Minister at the time, Maurice Bishop, and a number of his colleagues in the cabinet and supporters in the administration were taken out after a collapse of the government led to tragedies. They were killed. They attempted to stop what was a coup, and that itself led to, 6 days later, intervention by US-led forces, the Grenada Revolution, the end of that on October 19th, 1983. We just remind you of that day in Caribbean infamy, as they say. Well, with us now on the program, Mr. Clyde Elder. He's head of the union representing workers at, all right, Mr. Lambert, I think we got him. James Lambert, head of the National Union of Government and Federated Workers. We're talking about the government's decision now to up the age of retirement in the public sector from 60 to 65, and some people in the trade union movement are saying that there's some hypocrisy about it. It's confusing as to how the government has moved to do that now when there was resistance all along. But the main reason behind it is that the government is saying that the country's social security system is under strain, and it can't be sustained if people in the state sector aren't made to work longer. From 60 to 65. When the matter was first mooted, some trade unions accused the government of wanting to rob people of their retirement time. James Lambert, however, has been saying this is an issue goes back to at least a couple of years, 1994, when that was first mooted, and there was toing and froing about where the government was and what the government's intentions and inclinations would have been. But he is celebrating the decision. He's talking with us now about it. Good to see you. Thanks for coming on. Yes. Mr. Lambert? Are you there? You hearing us?
Yes, I am here.
Okay.
But you're very low.
I'm not hearing you clearly. I'm not sure what.
You're not hearing me? I am hearing you.
Okay. Well, let's see if it's important if the audience hears you. But so go back over the issue. You say this is a matter that began to be discussed in 1994, and there was a lot of resistance, and there was a lot of toing and froing from one agency to the other. But you are happy. You're celebrating this decision.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm awaiting.
Right. Well, I'm saying that from your position, in the introduction, I was talking about the fact that when it was first mooted, there were some trade union leaders who were saying that this is wrong because what it was doing is it is reducing the retirement time of people in the state sector. But that the situation had been, it was always put on the table against the backdrop of the fact that the social insurance arrangements were coming under strain, particularly the national insurance scheme, and that the experts were saying, the analysts were saying that if there weren't greater contributions going into the fund now, down the road, not too long from now, there will be pressure, and what is there would not be able to meet the needs of people at their time. And so one of the strategies was to increase the time at work for people from 60 to 65. And you were pointing out that there's been a flux in that in because different categories of workers in the state sector were required to retire at different ages, between 60 to 63, 63 to 65. So you are supporting the idea to universalize that at age 65.
Yes, I am. Yes, as President General of NUGFW, I am speaking. Hello, you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you very well. We're hearing you very well.
I am speaking specifically about the daily rated public sector workers.
Yes.
I worked in local government for over 30-something years. And during my initiation working in local government, I started to go at 65. That is what we had agreed. My contract had indicated that we were going at 65. In 1994, when the economy of the country was at the lowest ebb, the then Prime Minister, Patrick Manning, had intimated to my President General, Selwyn John, at the time, to meet to have a discussion that the compulsory retirement age should be reduced based on the economic situation of the country. And we had a long discussion pertaining to that, and we agreed that central and local government and the Tobago House of Assembly daily rated workers will be reduced from 65 to 60, with the expectation that we would have gotten a pension plan for all daily rated public sector workers since 94, sorry. We signed to that arrangement with the People's Government at the time. Mr. Valley, as the minister, was responsible, and we had a principal agreement with several other things that would have happened. And I am saying that it is unfair. It is totally unfair to the daily rated workers in central and local government continues to operate and go home compulsory at 60 when we had an arrangement that was never kept by the previous government that was there at the time. And therefore, some of the very said daily rated workers in the public sector, take for example, the Port-of-Spain daily rated workers go at 65. The contractors workers in San Fernando, daily rated workers go at 65. In the act with WASA, we represent the daily rated workers at WASA, they go at 65. So why it is that some workers will go at 65 and some will go at 60? And I am saying the time has come that I am totally satisfied, and I'm asking and appealing to the government, contrary to what others might say, because all of them who saying that we should not go at 65, some of the members are very pensionable, they have no problem, and contrary, I understand yesterday that the opposition leader is saying that they will look into it with the lawyers and they ought not to go. The country has reached in a situation presently that I am of the view that all workers should go at 65. Whatever amendment that has to be made pertaining to the NIS Act, it should be done. And if you go throughout the Caribbean, especially the English-speaking Caribbean, no worker can go home at 60 years. Look at just the very set TNM government 3 years ago made the judges in the Republic of Trinidad, they retiring at 70. All over the islands in the West Indies, people go home at 65, 70, 67, and different ages. The United States and all those things, you work until you can't work anymore. Why it is that Trinidad and Tobago sending home young men at 60 years with all the skills and everything, and is not allowing them to go at 60 years? Even the NIB have made recommendation that they should reduce the compulsory retirement age. And what we are not taking into consideration is that we're speaking about compulsory. As I speak, you go at 60, but you have an option that you could go at 55, you could go at 50, depending on what your conditions are. So what we are speaking about now is 65 compulsory. That does not mean that you have to work to 65. There are provisions that will be made that you could go before 65. And I am of the view very strongly why it is that some goes at 60, some goes at 65. And I am saying equity is not there. And because of the consideration of NUGFW at the time, hence the reason why the daily-rated public sector workers going home at 60 years. So I am appealing to the government, contrary to what is being said, come and ensure that whatever amendments have to be made legislatively or otherwise, that the Trinidad and Tobago public sector workers should go at 65. I am totally satisfied with that.
Right. So in your case, it is strictly on that principle and not necessarily that is more important to you and your members, one presumes, than the question of addressing the situation up ahead with the national insurance scheme.
Yes, of course. I said whatever amendment has to be made, let it be made. But I am of the view that we should be going at 65.
Yeah. And you say that the opposition has threatened to file some kind of a motion to block it. But I mean, so you are politically associated, aligned with the UNC, not so. And was this not a matter that you think that should have been discussed with you as to get your views on that? How does that affect, or might it affect?
Andy, since 2008, we have been advocating, even with the UNC government that was in office between 2010 2015, that the retirement age for children, are speaking specifically for the daily-rated workers, ought to have been compulsory at 65. It's not something that we're now speaking about. I am saying that there is an arrangement previously. We have made presentation in the Ministry of Finance. All sorts of documents have been given for both the pension and the compulsory retirement age. I'm appealing to the opposition in government to support the idea of public sector workers going to 65.
Yeah, and your colleague, Mr. Anizet, is quoted in a newspaper article in the news a couple of days ago in the light of the decision by the government. He says that there's been an unwillingness and neglect by the government for the last 10 years to address that particular matter. In that context, he says the government is rather...
The port workers go at 65. So there is no equity pertaining to how workers go home at the compulsory age.
Yeah. So when...
we are in support of the government with the idea of bringing the compulsory age. With options, you will have options between 60 and 65, that if for whatever reasons you wish to go home early, if it affects the NIS that you receive, amendment could be made to bring it in line. But I am saying that too many young people is going home at 60 years that have all the skills and so forth, and the time has come that we should follow the other islands within the Caribbean and the world, that people should not be going home at 60 years.
Right, so that would have been your union's position when...
that is our union's position. I have made it abundantly clear. Late with the trade union movement, I am the President General of NATOC. I'm the President of NATOC, and I've made it abundantly clear that we are supportive of the compulsory age that goes to 65.
And in making his rounds, Mr. Manning, did he meet with your union, and you would have put that to him? You would have endorsed this?
We have indicated that. We met, and we have indicated our willingness, supporting the idea of a compulsory retirement age of 65.
All right, Mr. Lambert, thank you very much for talking with us.
No problem, anytime.
You're very welcome. We will take a break, and when we come back, we hope to be talking with Clyde Elder, the leader of the union representing workers at TSTT, the Communication Workers Union. What are his views on that very matter? Stay with us.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe. Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport, October 3rd to October 23rd, with replays on October 24th. It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
It's Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, all long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition, serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
Perfection doesn't happen by chance. Like an artist, the cook selects the main ingredient, one that is worthy of a proud cultural tradition. Trusted to enhance your creations with its richness and versatility. To create a cooking masterpiece, the secret is simple. The brand we know, the brand we trust, the brand our ancestors have been using for generations.
There is only one pure cow brand ghee. Look for the marks of authenticity.
Welcome back. Well, we're staying with this issue about the government's intentions to go to the parliament to take the necessary steps to make it mandatory for workers in the state sector, in particular those who now retire at 60, to go to 65. There's been some discussions about it. There's been some consultations about it. The Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Brian Manning, led those discussions to the point where the government is moving to put that into effect. We just heard from James Lambert. He says that his union at least has been campaigning for something like this for the longest while. He said since 1994. Well, there's reporting on it in one of the newspapers in Newsday with the decision of the government to go forward with it, to go to the parliament on it. And it's not all smooth sailing. It's not all a blanket agreement across the board in the trade unions. One trade union here, in fact, the Banking, Insurance and General Workers Union is saying that the matter ought to be the subject of widespread consultations. Where we at with that, to what extent there will be pushback, to the extent that that is seen as necessary. Where is the CWU on it? Clyde Elder is the head of the CWU, that's the union representing workers in TSTT in particular. Good to see you, sir. Comment on the issue as to where your position is, where the people you represent are on it.
Yeah, morning, Andy, and good morning to Trinidad and Tobago. I hope you are hearing me clearly.
Very well.
Yes. So let me just say that we at the Communication Workers Union, we do not support the increase of the retirement age from 60 to 65. As far as we are aware, the consultation had taken place from the level of the recommendation by the Board of Inland Revenue, the National Insurance Board.
Yes.
And that was in an effort to, instead of giving people a full pension at 60, you'll be able to get a pension at 60 still, but you will get a full pension only if you retire at 65. And that's the consultation that we were involved in. And I wanted to say, Andy, that as far as we are aware, the official minimum or retirement age in Trinidad and Tobago is in fact 65. The thing is that you can access your national insurance pension from age 60, and what they have been saying is that they want to now reduce that amount if you access it at 60 or before 65, and to the point where if you used to get $3,000 at 60, you're going to get $2,100 instead of $3,000 in moving forward. And that's what the consultation that we were involved in had entailed. To say now that, for the Attorney General to say that he's going to bring legislation to increase the retirement age from 60 to 65, I think that needs some clarification because there are a number of companies such as TSTT, we have a pension plan, a number of other companies that have pension plans, and those pension plans cater for retirement at 60. So that statement by the Attorney General needs some clarification because a number of persons are being very anxious because they're saying, well, all my life I've been working towards 60, looking for my retirement, and now they're going to tell me that I have to wait until 65 to retire now? And that's madness. So that needs some clarification because as far as we understood it, it was you could still retire at 60, but if you access your NNS pension before 65, it will be reduced by about 30% going forward. That's what we understood it to be. So I think the AG needs to clarify his statement.
Yeah, and you're saying that, well, at least from your neck of the woods, in terms of the union you represent, that is a position that was accepted by the workers, that they would take that reduced NIS payment if they decided to?
No, we did not accept that at all. We did not accept that at all. But what I'm saying is that the consultation that was had with us had nothing to do with a carte blanche raising of the retirement age from 60 to 65. It had to do with persons who access NIS pension from age 60 getting a reduced pension, and we did not agree to that either. As a matter of fact, Andy, I want to say this. The National Insurance Board has indicated that because of a number of issues with the funding of pension, they have said that the retirement benefits and those people accessing retirement benefits are increasing and the number of contributors are decreasing. Well, obviously that is so, because when you look at what the government has been doing, they've been sending home people left, right, and center. I could give you examples of companies that closed down and thousands of workers went home. Petrotron is a good example. TSC is an excellent example. We have TDC, we have Caroni Greed, we have ArcelorMittal, we have Tidco. People going home and not being gainfully employed thereafter, and therefore it reduces the amount of contributors in the plan. And once that happens, then, of course, when you reach retirement age, you've contributed, so you want to get what you contributed from the plan. So what the government needs to focus on is not so much an increase of the retirement age, but how do we now increase the amount of contributors to the fund, to the National Insurance Fund? How do we do that? And you cannot do that by retrenching workers, carte blanche, and send people home in mass, and then saying, well, you have to pay for that. That is wrong. We objected to that, we continue to object it, and we are not in favor of an increase of the minimum pension age from 60 to 65.
Yeah, and you all would have, or Mr. Manning would have met with you all, and you would have put those things to him on the table?
Yes. In fact, we had a meeting with Mr. Manning, Minister Manning, and members of the National Insurance Board, and I did say to them then, and I want to repeat it now, that the National Insurance Board needs to get its act together and ensure that they bring employers who are errant to bear, because there are a number of employers in this country who deduct national insurance from workers and are not paying it to the National Insurance Board.
But how is that still the case? How is that still the case? And why does that continue without, as the people say, without letterhead?
That is the case. That is the case, Andy, because the National Insurance Board has an arm or a branch that deals with the application of the law. So they have a section of the National Insurance Board that is underfunded, that is underdeveloped, that is understaffed, and therefore those enforcement officers of the National Insurance Board are not enough to enforce the law of the National Insurance Act. And therefore you have a number of employers who are errant, and because of the deficiencies of the National Insurance Board, to bring them to bear, and that's because there's no staff, no resources allocated to the enforcement agency of the National Insurance Board, the compliance section that is, then these errant employers get away, and some of them get away scot-free.
So from what you're saying is that the government's move now to go to Parliament to set up the law to do it is premature, and the Bajans would say it's previous, because you're saying that you're insisting that there ought to be much more discussion about it before we get to that point?
Well, that is correct. And apart from having much more discussions, Andy, the government needs to answer the questions of what have they done to increase the contributors in the fund. And when they answer that honestly, then they will realize what the problem is. So the problem is not that we have too much pensioners asking for benefits from the fund. The problem is that we have too little contributors to the fund. For example, I think it was on the 22nd of June this year, the Minister of Finance, Colin Booth, said in Parliament that there are about 4,000 employers who are not contributing and who have not registered with the National Insurance Board. And he said that from an estimate of the loss of those 4,000 non-registered employers, it's about over $900-something million a year. Imagine that, that's almost $1 billion. 4,000 employers not registered with NIB, causing a loss to NIB of almost $1 billion. What have they done about that? And it cannot be that the answer to fix that problem is to increase the retirement age. People working all of their lives. Some people working from 18, some from 17, some from 19, from 20. By the time they retire at age 60, all of their life they spent working and looking forward to retiring young enough and enjoying the fruits of their labor that they would have contributed all these years. What are they doing to consider these people? It cannot be that we say to them, well, okay, you need to work 5 more years before you enjoy your retirement. And at 65, you can barely enjoy life as it is already at that age. So we do not support this increase of the retirement age, Andy.
But so there appears to be a difference in the ranks of the labor movement, because we spoke just minutes ago with Mr. James Lambert from NUGFW, and he's saying in no uncertain terms, bring it on.
Yes, and I'm not surprised that there are some persons who are saying increase the retirement age. In fact, when you look at the age of some of those persons who are saying that they already past retirement, some of them more than 10 years ago. And it cannot be that to help out the government's failures, that the workers are asked to pay for that. Now, Andy, the thing is, this issue of the retirement age, I support wholeheartedly the issue of the daily rated workers of the government being afforded a pension. They have not been afforded a pension, and I support them wholeheartedly in that. And I think that they should be afforded a pension. And I think that they should even be afforded a pension from age 60. Right now, they have to wait until age 65 before they can access the senior citizen grant. They do not have a pension. That is wrong. The government needs to fix that. I support that. I do not support that. And fixing that, you increase the retirement age to 65. Because you see, Andy, there are some pension plans where after you have contributed 33 and 30 years employed, you don't really benefit after the contributions of after 33 and 30 years. You don't benefit from those contributions that you make. And therefore, what is the government then doing to address the pension legislation in Trinidad and Tobago? Are they doing anything at all about that? And the answer is no. And we need to also focus on the pension legislation before we could even focus on increasing the retirement age. Are they doing that? The answer is no. And there are other things that has to be done, Andy, before the government can say, let us increase the retirement age from 60 to 65. And they are not doing that.
Such as?
Such as looking at the contributors to the National Insurance Fund, such as looking at the Pension Act and that 33 and 30 years of service that you make into pension funds, and after that, you really don't benefit after that, such as looking at ways to bring errant employers to justice and to bear regarding the National Insurance scheme, such as ensuring that people who are elites in society and flout the law feel the full brunt of the law. And that's a problem. Maybe the government don't want to go after their friends, families, finances, and cronies because they don't want to mash corn, and they prefer to go after the working class, the small man, because the small man ain't gonna do them nothing. That's what they feel. So they tell themselves, well, look, listen, we could go after them and they would just take it. I don't take it. I mean, after all, gas price increased once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, and nobody arrived yet.
Yeah, what do you mean when you say that so people don't benefit from their contributions in the workforce in the state sector for 33 and 30 years? Go over that a little bit about this whole business with 33 and 30 years being the...
I'm speaking, Andy, about most pension plans in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not speaking generally about the National Insurance Fund. I'm speaking about most pension plans. So in most pension plans, your maximum contribution is 33 and 30 years of service. So once you have worked for 33 and 30 years, and you have contributed for that, you are insured, guaranteed basically that you're going to get a full pension at retirement. Doesn't matter what happens, you get a full pension at retirement. But there are persons who work for 40 years, for 36 years, for 41 years, for 42 years, and the period of contribution after 33 and 30 years of service is basically money that you pay into the plan that does not really benefit you at the end of the day. So after you have paid 33 and 30 years of service into a pension plan, I think you should stop paying. But under the law, you cannot stop paying because you're still employed. And once you're still employed, you have to pay into the fund. And therefore, after 33 and 30 years, then there must be some change in legislation to say, if you contribute after 33 and 30 years, this is what's going to happen to the money that you put in there.
I see what you're saying.
Yes. And that's the point I'm making. And even with the National Insurance Fund, Andy, we have heard this figures of 750 contribution. If you don't make 750, then you can't get a pension. And you have to make 14 or 1,500 contributions to get your full pension from National Insurance Board. Then look at the contribution amongst that guarantees someone a pension as well. The point I'm making is that there are other issues to be explored and to be examined, rather than saying, let's increase the retirement age from 60 to 65. People have been working. In some instances, they're working towards 60, and as far as they're concerned, their goal, their eye, the focus is on 60. And you cannot now tell them, your focus has not moved, I'm changing the goalpost. When you're thinking you're scoring a goal here, no, you need to score a goal somewhere else because I've just moved the goalpost. That can't be correct, Andy. That can't be right.
So there is need, in your view, for much more discussion and consultation about it?
Of course. But you see, this government has a method, a way of operating. I'm going to consult with you. I'm going to ask you all kind of questions. I'm going to have all kind of town hall meetings and any amount of meetings you want. But at the end of the day, their position and their mind is not going to change. That is not what meaningful consultation is about. Meaningful consultation involves that you hear the views, you take into consideration every side of the story, every angle, and then you do what is best, not for the government alone, not for the persons who don't want to retire at 60 or 65 alone, but what is best for everybody as a whole. And I'm saying that what's best for everybody cannot be to increase the minimum age from 60 to 65.
To what extent do you think this will become an issue of contention if the government goes ahead with this plan to move to the parliament to get this matter moving legislatively?
It already is an issue of contention, Andy, because you do have persons in society saying, look, that makes sense. I have seen where a number of economists, I think I saw Roger Hussein saying that is a welcome initiative. I think I saw former Minister Dumas saying, well, that is something that is welcomed and we're happy that the government has done that. I also heard my comrades in the NUGFW saying, we welcome that, bring it on.
Yes.
But by and large, there are persons who are saying, look, listen, we don't support that, And we at the Communication Workers Union are part of those people saying we don't support that. We are not saying that change is not needed, We are not saying that the government has to look at pension laws and pension acts in Trinidad and Tobago. We are not saying the National Insurance Board has to be looked at more carefully and ensure that they have adequately resourced to ensure that they get the contributions. We are not saying that the government has not done things to encourage the situation. What we are saying is that there are things that has to be done, such as increasing the contributors in the fund to ensure that you can pay benefits later down the road. For example, I'll give you one example. I remember when in TSTT we wanted to have a medical plan for pensioners. And it was going to be very high for the pensioners to pay a premium. And what we did in TSTT is that we said, listen, here's what. We're going to have our pensioners pay little or nothing at all, and the working population of TSTT will pay for them. And when we went out to the members of TSTT, the active members of TSTT, are you willing to pay for the pensioners? They say yes. we have no problem if you increase our premium to pay for the pensioners, because the pensioners who have contributed lay the foundation for us, and it's time for them to be comfortable and relaxed now. And we were able to do that in TSTT. Now, in this situation that the government has now put forward, what is happening is that you have a number of persons who are coming out from university, coming out from schools, and cannot get job. And if they do get a job, it's a short-term job, a contract here, a contract there, and that is not a sustainable job. The government needs to create ways, avenues, and means to create sustainable employment. And once they do that, and once they increase the employment rate, and once they ensure that the contributors to the plan are increased, and once they ensure that errant employers are brought to bear, there will be no need to increase the minimum age from 60 to 65. But that is not their focus. Their focus is to get a quick fix to a problem that they have created over a period of time. And we have to pay for that.
Right. I just wanted to just it's a small point, but it's important, significant. The Dumas you referred to is not the former minister. I think he's no longer with us. The one here is the retired head of the public service and diplomat Reginald Dumas. And he's supporting it. Yeah, and he's supporting it on one principal ground. He said that when the age of retirement was put at 60, I was from eras when people wouldn't expect it to live too much longer than that, but now because of advances in healthcare and the rest of it, people are living longer. So moving to 65 ought not to be a major issue.
Well, Andy, let's look at that for a minute, because pension plans and actual studies are based on two things. Well, two things. One, that persons are going to have a guaranteed pension at least up until age 70, and that men live shorter lifespan than women. And it has now been shown that, that men are projected to live about 1.7 years longer than previously anticipated. Now, does that study that was done even by the National Insurance Board and the actual studies that came out of that, it showed that, does saying that the average lifespan for men is going to increase by maybe about 2 or 3 years, and for women about maybe 2 or 3 years as well, does that justify increasing the retirement age from 60 to 65 over a 5-year period? I don't think so. But I respect the views of Mr. Dumas. He has been somebody who has been a voice of reason for many, many years. On this point, he and I will have to disagree, though, because I think that more in-depth analysis of that idea that people are living longer needs to be taken into consideration. Because what we also have is that we need to bring in people in the workforce from younger. And that is a problem where young people cannot get opportunities for employment in Trinidad and Tobago. And OJT and on-the-job training programs is not sustainable employment.
Yeah.
If it is you bring in young people from age 16, age 17, 18, what have you, as soon as they come out from university or what have you, and you bring them into the employment, the sustainable gainful employment workforce from very early, then you capture a bigger portion of the working population who are going to contribute to the fund and to society generally. And therefore there will be no need really to increase your retirement age from 60 to 65. You need to focus on young people, because you see the other thing, Andy, is that the longer you keep persons employed, is the harder it is for young persons to get employment. Because sometimes the older ones have to give way for the younger ones. And the longer it takes for the younger ones to give way, the longer it takes for the younger one to come in.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there.
The younger ones very early, then they are more productive and they can contribute more significantly to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your perspectives on this issue, Clyde Elder.
My pleasure. My pleasure, Andy.
You're very welcome. We're going to take a break. Stay with us.
Diwali is in the air again, and Royal Castle reminds you to try its yummy veggie burger. The Royal Castle veggie burger is great on its own or in a combo with a side and a 16-ounce drink. And it's healthy too. A nutritious patty made with oats, lentils, chana, potatoes, and carrot inside a soft bun with tomatoes and lettuce. So for this season, try the Castle's tasty and healthy veggie burger. Shubh Diwali from Royal Castle.
I have been shopping at Price Club from the beginning.
I love most of all the friendliness of the staff.
I shop there because my children love me and I love them.
My favorite section is the vegetarian section. They have such a wide variety, which I love.
I have been out shopping, to check out the prices, but here at the Lewis, it's the best.
I have tried other places and I came right back to Price Club because they are the low price leader.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
It's Diwali time again, and that means delicious vegetarian cuisine. Chief has all your herbs and spices for Diwali. Curry, jeera, saffron, garam masala and more for all your tal curry. Cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, ginger and cardamom for those delectable sweets. Brown rice, dal and chana for those tasty delicacies. And of course, Chief baking powder for soft and light roti. This Diwali, remember, the Chief reason is always taste.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. 61-year-old arrested following gun find. Works at Gandhi Roundabout begins following repeated protests. Scarborough secondary rotation cycles to end. And internationally, blackouts in thousands of towns and villages after Russia strikes. Now for the details. Officers of the Southern Division have seized a high-powered automatic weapon, ammunition, and arrested a man in connection with the seizure during a firearm removal exercise on Monday. The officers executed a search warrant at a house located at New City Avenue, Marabella, where they found and seized one AR-15 rifle fitted with a magazine containing 10 rounds of 5.56 ammunition. A 61-year-old laborer was arrested for the offences of possession of firearm and possession of ammunition. After repeated protests led by Oraput West MP David Tanku, the Ministry of Works has begun some safety works at the Gandhi Village Roundabout. At the recent Standing Finance Committee meeting of the Parliament, the MP for the area had again asked when works to install additional safety features at the roundabout was going to be done. The minister had advised that funding for the installation of rumble strips and other safety measures was included in the work plan and that installation was due soon. The MP said he is heartened that the activism has finally bore fruit. Rotated classes at the Scarborough Secondary School will end soon. This according to THA's Education Secretary Zarisha Hackett at the Monday mandate. She said the remainder of the works is expected to cost $800,000.
Upgrades are underway at the UE Open Campus at Signal Hill, which will assist with temporarily housing the sixth formers and would bring an end to the rotation system currently in place. Due to the complexity of the task and the acquisition of a 40-foot long crane, in order to remove the beams, of course, the completion of all works in the auditorium needs to be restored to a safe and working environment, and that estimated duration for completion will be 30 calendar days, since works can only be carried out during weekends and after school periods.
In international news, more than 1,000 towns and villages across Ukraine remain without power after massive Russian attacks in recent days, Ukrainian officials have said. The emergency service spokesman said more than 70 people had been killed in the rocket and drone strike since 7th October. President Vladimir Zelensky said that 30% of Ukraine's power stations had been destroyed in the past 8 days. Parts of the capital Kyiv have no power and water after new strikes on Tuesday. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Marquise Akers. Thanks for watching.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe. Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport, October 3rd to October 23rd, with replays on October 24th. It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
All right, welcome back to the program. We're making attempts to contact Mr. Ronald Boynes once more on this question of what he sees will happen if there's not a change at the top of the ruling party, the People's National Movement. He said in an article that was carried in the Sunday papers that the party stands in jeopardy of imploding if that doesn't take place. Well, we're hoping to make contact with him as we continue the program. But in the meantime, let's take you around the region a little bit. We start with Jamaica, where a senior superintendent, in a moment of reflection, was speaking about the killing of a constable who was shot by gunmen recently.
Implementation of laws that would engender greater gender parity within their parliaments, even as they continue to canvass for the removal of all institutional and systematic structures, legislation, policies, and programs which perpetuate gender inequality. The Attorney General made a statement while he was addressing the 145th Interparliamentary Union Assembly in Rwanda on Thursday. The international meeting is focusing on gender equality and gender-sensitive parliaments as drivers for a more resilient and peaceful world.
Although gender equality is entrenched in the Charter of the United Nations
and in the fundamental guarantees of governing instruments of similar organizations across the globe and are in the constitutions and laws of most countries, the reality is starkly different. For example, only 3 in 193 countries surveyed have 50 or more female membership in their parliament. 143 countries have below 30% female membership, and still yet several countries have no women representation in their parliament.
Minister Nandlal said the process for more representation of women in the parliament began a long time ago in Guyana, but it remains a work in progress.
These are staggering statistics in a world where female gender outnumbers the male gender. So, colleagues, we have a lot of work to do, and a good start is to push for legislation to be implemented in member states that would engender greater gender parity in their parliaments, while we continue to canvass for the removal of all institutional systematic structures, legislation, policies and programs which perpetuate gender inequality across the state's apparatus. Let us therefore resolve to move resolutely to make the theme of this conference a reality. Our failure will certainly result in greater human rights tragedies and societal stagnation, and indeed the global peace for which we strive will continue to elude us.
Guyana, he noted, also has a strong network of legislation, policies and programs that outlaw gender and other forms of discrimination and simultaneously protect women and children from ills such as sexual abuse, domestic violence and trafficking in persons, as well as human trafficking. The Attorney General urged member states of the IPU to move resolutely to make the conference's theme. He said there is simply no rational basis to resist greater gender balance in the parliaments. Speaker of the National Assembly Manzo Nadir, Opposition Member of Parliament Dawn Hastings-Williams, and Clerk of the National Assembly Sherlock Isaacs are also part of the Guyanese delegation attending the IPU conference.
What you just saw, it was not Jamaica, it was Guyana, where the Attorney General Anil Nandlal was making a call for the international community to ensure that there's gender parity in parliaments across the globe. And that was a piece from News Source Guyana. We go to St. Lucia now, where the Commissioner of Police says some of the officers fighting crime strategies are producing the positive results. And we have this from HTS News Source.
Commissioner of Police Milton Daisy was quizzed on the police force's response to the high level of gun violence in St. Lucia. According to the Commissioner, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force has adopted a multi-pronged approach which is producing results. He points to the number of illegal guns confiscated this year as evidence of success.
128 firearms were recovered last year, and this year so far we had 73, and persons have been charged for the firearms. Some of them have been convicted, others are on remand, and others are in prison for the firearms. So the police is actually...
We are working.
We are working towards seeing that those firearms are taken off the streets.
Mm-hmm. The head of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force notes one area of grave concern, that of firearms being brought into St. Lucia through official ports of entry. He says more sophisticated instruments are required to detect guns passing through customs.
Now, and the history has shown that we have intercepted firearms at the ports of entry. So I believe one of the things that we need to do is to have the equipment to detect those firearms, like scanners and so on, yes. so that it do not reach the streets. So that would be the first step, because once you don't have it, you cannot use it, and once you have it, it will be used, and it's only used for one purpose: is to cause serious harm or injury, which leads to death.
The existence and operation of gangs weigh heavily on the minds of the top brass of the police force, with recent charges for offences under the anti-gang legislation yet another tool in the fight against criminality. The Commissioner of Police says the force will soon learn of the effectiveness of the new legislation when the cases are brought before the courts.
From what I have seen in the Act, I am quite satisfied on the face of it. However, because the we had never used it in the past.
Yes.
So you cannot measure whether it has challenges or not.
I see.
So with that incident that we had where persons were charged under the Act, we would await that matter going to court, and then we would see what is the outcome, so you would be able to follow where's the shortfall and so on, and if any amendments has to be made, it would be made, or if the police has certain things to add or to do, that it would be done.
The Solution public is anxious for a turnaround in the high level of violent crimes. To date, some 52 homicides have been recorded. The vast majority of the victims are young males.
All right, so well, we have with us now Mr. Ronald Boynes, who is contesting for the position of political leader of the People's National Movement in the elections that are the talk of the place these days. And we spoke with him a couple of days ago, and he was outlining his program, his agenda if he gets that position. Well, he gave an interview to one of the newspapers on Sunday in which he's saying that something has to happen in the leadership of the party because there's a disconnect now that can lead to implosion in the party. He says there is a gulf between the leadership and the membership of the party, and he wants to help fix that. Mr. Boynes has agreed to join us for another discussion this edition of the program. Good to have you, sir.
Good morning, Andy. Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago.
All right.
My pleasure to be here.
Well, thanks for coming back. Well, give us a sense of why you say what you're saying, that there is a disconnect between the leadership and the membership of the party. What are examples of that?
All right. Andy, the PNM is no doubt a great party, which is what attracted me to this party these 25 years ago when I became a member. In recent times, we have, in terms of getting feedback from some of what we consider to be our ground troops, those folks which define in our constitution as the basic unit of the party groups, other ordinary members, people who love the party. There has been this disregard for their views, disregard for their sentiments and how they feel about how things are going. Now, in terms of the structure of our party, our great founder, Dr. F. Williams, in the Constitution determined that each party group would be aligned to a polling division. And there are a minimum of 20 members in each party group. Now, there was good reason for that, because the polling division speaks to the electors and what their sentiments are to what is happening on the ground. So when there is extreme hardships in communities, when crime is out of control, all of these notes would be, the PNM members would be sensitized to these and be able to convey these sentiments and so on to the party itself, to the executive, ultimately to their members of parliament, their councils, etc. What has been happening in recent times is that there has been a disregard for members' views. There has been an imposition from on top, as it were. So that, for example, and I was in general counsel for 7 years previously, but I'm told, for example, that some members of general counsel that current issues in the budget, so on, things are not being brought to the general counsel, which is the highest decision-making body outside of an annual convention of the party, for determination and for input, first of all, and then a determination to say, well, our views, which derive from the ground, and the people which ultimately are the foundation of the party are represented. So in that regard, Andy, there is real disconnect. My watchwords, my mantra for my election campaign is respect for party, empowerment of party, and growth of party. And by extension, all of these things will filter out into the country. So respect for party and country, empowerment of party and country, and growth of party and country.
All right, so there's no, you're saying that on the one hand, there's no uptake from people in the various levels in the party coming up to the leadership. There's no consideration of the positions of those people. There's no discussion with them about what they want to see. Not that proposals coming up through the system are not getting attended to. There's a difference in what you're saying, right?
Yes. there's that. That is one issue. And you see the other issues too, and we've been getting reports from across the party as well about, different sleets there being imposition of certain sleets on the electors and other things. But the main concern that I have is whether the voice of our party is being heard and translated into policy. Dr. Eric Williams had this structure too, and articulated it that to a large measure we should try to keep the executive of the party separate from the cabinet of the country. And in terms of, because in the current scenario, the members of cabinet, by and large, hold all the senior positions in the party.
But I wanted to come to that because some other people are making some noises about that. Freddie Ferreira, and my understanding, Darian Marcel, so campaigning against that. They believe that there are too many members of cabinet who are in the executive now and who continue to seek positions in the executive of the party, and that so that goes against the grain.
Absolutely. Words articulated by our founder, Dr. Eric Williams. And so therefore it means who then can a member speak with, who can a member convey concerns to, if both the executive of the party and the executive of the country are one and the same. So where do policies derive from?
Yeah. And you make the point about imposition, so that those in the executive, you're accusing them of imposing, if not their will, their thinking and their strategies and their...
Yes. Well, I mean, my construct is that obviously a leader comes to any scenario with a vision of how he or she or they would like to see things done. But at the end of the day, you have to influence others with this vision. You have to receive the views, the concerns of for that particular vision. So when it is that it is just the vision of the leadership that is being translated into policy, separate and apart from the people who are the foundation of our party, that is a cause of concern. So I therefore echo Freddie Ferreira, a long-standing member who has worked with Dr. Eric Williams, a gentleman who is in his 90s, and who understands the structure of the PNM. Right? So we need to begin listening to our voices. Whenever we don't listen to the voice of the PNM people, PNM goes into opposition. And that trend has to be reversed, because we have real wisdom in the basic units and in the ground troops of our party that needs to be heard at the top level.
So there's no, where are the support bases for some of the people in the leadership? Let's talk the political leader, deputy political leader, and other people on that executive. Where are their support bases in the party and among the ground troops?
Well, the support will come from the membership. Well, of course, we are in a contest, so we are obviously seeking to have our views certainly be heard, and I consider that I'm the best option to become the next political leader of the party. So it will be my duty now to convey my vision of how I would like to see the party organized and run, and hope that my vision is the one that is successful. But Andy, there are other concerns as well, and I want to echo it.
Go ahead.
About the state of the electoral list. These are issues which, quite frankly, reflects on the outgoing leadership of our party. Because there's no reason why a party as great as ours, 60 years old, should have concerns about the contestants of the election receiving the list in a timely manner. Up to now, we were promised a list last week, Friday, and this list has not been presented to us as yet. What is the reason for that? One of my recommendations as political leader will be to have an independent body conduct these elections, so that there can be no allegations of any overarching influence by whether it is the outgoing executive or the political leader, whoever he or she is at the time. So that is one issue that we can put that to rest. Because as it stands now, we were promised the electoral list, preliminary list of members last Friday. Today is obviously the following Wednesday, several days later. We are told that we will get it tomorrow. Right? And quite frankly, things like this is really unsatisfactory and reflects that they who have occupied the offices prior to us, the outgoing political leader and his team,
so
I really feel in that regard.
Who or what unit is responsible for that, for keeping the list in such a state that it can be produced when it is required to be produced? Which unit or which officer, which group of officers in the party now responsible for that?
Well, an elections supervisory committee has been put in place to run the elections, and chaired by Mr. Anthony Roberts, a very distinguished member of our party, former chairman of Sawal Avantil Regional Corporation. But the point
he was a minister as well?
Yes, indeed. But the point is that he is obviously a member of the party, and perhaps subject to receiving appropriate resources from the party, because he's now assumed this obligation a few months ago. So I don't know what is the state of resources that he has to be able to, to organize his task accordingly. All of these things need to be very transparent, because we recall that the chairman, the outgoing chairman, Mr. Mbe, had indicated that the list, etc., would be available within a timely fashion. And therefore, it is important because we campaign based on the list of registered members. But so far, at first blush, it's 1 week late already, and counting because we have not received it as yet. And so, as I said, I don't know what the state of play is as regards the resourcing of the Election Supervisory Committee, for example. So these are issues that we need to solve. We can't be like the other party, always descending into confusion during election time. We are not them, and therefore we need to set a higher bar and a higher standard. And under my leadership, I pledge to the members that, organized, fair, and equitable elections will be the way going forward. There will be no need to fear anyone in terms of retribution because you support this one or that one. All of these things will be a thing of the past under my leadership as political leader of the People's National Movement.
Well, I wrote a piece that would appear in my column in the papers today on some of that issues. People in the PNM are talking, but they can't afford to be identified as saying what they're saying, and people have been talking about disenchantment at several levels in the party, and people are talking about the fact that in some of the candidacies for these elections, what the political leader wants, he gets, and there are people who are there to enforce that. So people have been discouraged from taking certain positions because of who is on the political leader's slate and who is not. To what extent you can speak to that?
Well, I mean, Andy, I listen to the people, and what is the prevailing sentiment of the people, and it mirrors what you're indicating there, that people are fearful, apprehensive. I've noticed some people dropping out of the election. I don't know the reason. Mr. Brian Manning, a friend of mine, has indicated that it is a family and has a commitment, so we leave it at that.
And people don't buy that?
Sorry?
Some people don't buy that.
Well, I mean, people are entitled to interpret things as they are, but, he's in the position that he may know best as to why he dropped out and, the commitments, etc., that he speaks about. But there is, and this is it's a fact, there is this apprehension that I'm feeling from people to come forward and participate in what is a democratic exercise in the party. And they don't want to ostensibly be associated with some people. This sentiment, and it's not just one or two. It is quite frankly very pervasive and therefore not healthy. Because PNM has always been a very vibrant party where people are free to express their views. Dr. Eric Williams, at one point, I think in the late 70s, wanted to clean house and get rid of some MPs. And the constituency marched into Balize House and told him these are the people that we want, including Shah Mohammed and others. And the great Dr. Williams had no choice but to oblige and comply with the request of the people.
Yeah, and that there are some people who are being privileged over others undeservingly.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things that people are saying.
So the party is a democratic party for all. The resources of the country, these resources are for all people. And therefore, that's why I said that once policy originates from the ground up, aligned with the vision of the people, there will be peace in the land, because the wishes and the desire of the people will be translated into how they want to see the country governed. Right? Added, of course, to the vision and the creative ideas of the leader. So this is how I see it, and this is our challenge going forward, to, as the prophet Isaiah said, to undo the heavy burden and let the oppressed go free. That is a quote that John F. Kennedy used in his inaugural address as well, and I very much identify with it.
Yeah, and so the complaints and the apprehensions about what might happen with the elections, those are not things that people are just saying because they want to create some doubt in people's minds. These come from real senses of to some extent, the state of affairs with the party machinery.
Yes, Andy. That observation is correct. There is real cause for concern that we could identify. This is not, these are factual matters that we could identify that, cannot be now addressed because we cannot now get a list of registered voters in a timely way. The time for that has gone, and there are other concerns. What I say to the members, because I am very focused, that we need all hands on deck to come out and to, quite frankly, remove the president's leadership of the PNM. And therefore, make your voice and your vote count. Each member is entitled to a vote. This is a time of ultimate democracy. You protest by way of a vote. And so I want each member to come forward and to vote for respect, empowerment, and growth in our party and by extension our country.
All right, without fear of reprisal of one kind or another. But Mr. Boynes, thank you very much for talking with us again on this issue. What leadership stakes in the ruling People's National Movement. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning, Shannon.
Before we leave it, I'll just tell you what's on the front pages of these newspapers, what's inside there on Newsday today, Trinidad and Tobago. They're talking about a flood of murders in parts of central Trinidad, more bodies or more parts of bodies being discovered in the streams there. That's the front page. On the back page, of course, is sports stuff. And in the Newsday Tobago, well, action having to do with festivities and festivals there. This one on the front page, the Blue Food Festival last Sunday, people partying and getting ready, of course, for the first carnival in October in Tobago. Lots of discussion coming out about that as well. And we want to leave you with this. Watch this. And it's about a little Levi dresses up as international soca star Super Blue for his Icon Day in school. Watch this. And that's our broadcast on this edition of the program. We thank you for staying with us. We tell you you can get in touch with us here at AM Prime at WESNCC and all our social media platforms. You can send your emails to amprime@wesncc.com. In half an hour, news at the top of the hour, to be followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. But for now, for this, I'm done. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.